Awakened at 3 a.m., I discovered my daughter's secret. Her phone revealed an incredible surprise. The soft glow filtered through the crack of Emily's bedroom door, beckoning to me like a moth to a flame. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, heart racing. What could be so urgent at this hour? As a mechanic, my world revolved around grease and machines. Yet here I was, standing in front of my daughter's door, a whirlwind of curiosity and dread twisting in my gut. I tiptoed closer, the floorboards creaking softly underfoot. Bracing myself, I peeked inside, breath caught. There she was, my daughter. Not lost in the typical teenage escapades, but immersed in videos about chemistry experiments and scholarship applications. My heart split, swelling with pride as I took in her determination, yet heavy with an insidious doubt. Was she aiming for something bigger? Colleges sprinkled across a map, each representing a world I struggled to fathom. Memories crashed over me. Emily's mother, relentless in her encouragement, urging our daughter to chase dreams too elusive for her own grasp back when she was alive. I remembered the nights I spent wrenching stubborn bolts at the garage, while Emily waited at home, her bright hopes clashing with my daunting reality. Would I stand in the way of her ambitions? I felt like a gatekeeper for a life made up of oil stains and mechanics tools, and I wasn't sure I wanted that. As I sat there, I couldn't help but feel like an imposter. My evenings were swamped with grease and labor, the dollars barely stretching to keep our simple life afloat. Did I miss the signs? As her voice vibrated off the walls in spirited deliberation, I hesitated on the edge of decision-making, grappling with both pride and anxiety. If she wanted this, did it mean abandoning everything we had? Suddenly my hands hit the frame of the door while I rifled through a message thread she hadn't intended me to discover. Tension gripped me as troubling allegations about the local school board surfaced, revealing biases against low-income families. My thoughts spiraled. How could I protect her dreams when the very system designed to support students threatened to crush them? The burn of inadequacy hit my chest like an anvil. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Frustration lanced through me. I had to act. Beneath the sheen of my protective instincts lay the gnawing awareness that I was ill-equipped for this fight. Did I have the courage to challenge an institution that could decide my daughter's future? Resentment brewed towards the very system I trusted. Each moment felt like a countdown, a ticking clock weighing heavily on my shoulders. As dawn's first light crept into the sky, illuminating my resolve, Emily's voice echoed in my mind. Dad, I believe in us. But how could I harness that belief? Would it be enough to bridge the chasm of fear between protecting her and letting her fly? The stakes had never felt higher, and the question loomed large. Could a father rise above his own limitations to ensure his child's dreams take flight? Or would the weight of his struggles permanently ground them both? Time was running out to find out. The next morning was heavy with unspoken challenges. The sun broke through the blinds, a silent witness to my tumultuous thoughts as they played a ceaseless loop in my mind. Emily was still asleep, dreams untouched by the storm that churned in my chest. I grabbed my tools, each one a familiar relic from years spent beneath hoods and undercarriages, but today their weight felt different. They were a reminder of the life I needed to change. As I turned a wrench, I thought about the mountain before us, a school board with biases etched into its operations, like rust on metal. How would I, a mechanic, enter the ivory towers of academia? The thought was paralyzing. Yet deep within, a flicker of clarity ignited. I wouldn't just fix machines today. I would need to fix the very paradigm that threatened my daughter's ambitions. Before I could let self-doubt seep in, I decided to step into the larger world of Emily's dreams. I began researching community organizations that advocated for educational equity, groups that fought for students like my daughter. I traded my usual mechanical duties for phone calls and emails, each conversation sharpening into a clearer vision of what I needed to do. The mechanics of the mind was a different toolbox, but soon I was piecing together a plan, one that involved not just Emily, but the fight against ingrained systemic issues. The more I learned, the angrier I became. The injustices I read about struck harder than a steel hammer on an anvil. I could feel resentment growing, not just against the school board, but against my once blind trust. Could I have been more proactive? My hands, which had perpetually fixed the superficial problems, now trembled with the urgency of a deeper need. How could I champion Emily's cause when I had turned a blind eye to the real battles? I scribbled notes furiously, mapping out my thoughts, a newfound focus emerging from chaos. Lunch arrived far too soon, and I took a break outside, inhaling the fresh air, letting the briskness numb the trepidation swelling inside. I knew I would have to confront the school board. The mere idea felt absurd. I was just a mechanic. But didn't that title carry weight too? I operated intense machinery and understood the delicate balance of how parts work together. Perhaps harnessing that mindset could help navigate this unfamiliar terrain. That afternoon, Emily emerged from her bedroom, her face lighting up at the sight of me. But I could see shadows of anxiety beneath her smile. "Dad, did you sleep?" she asked, noting my weary eyes. I chuckled weakly. "No, just tinkering away." Taking a deep breath, I decided it was time for a heart-to-heart. I talked to her about my discoveries, revealing the threats looming over her aspirations. As I shared my convictions, I felt her tensions ease, replaced by a spark of excitement. "Maybe we can fight this together," she ventured, an idea blossoming. "Yes," I said, determination solidifying in my voice. "We will." Together, she and I would confront this imbalance. The path ahead was still murky, but now I felt less like a spectator and more like a player. A father standing ground for his daughter's future. As the day crept toward dusk, Emily offered to research potential public hearings. It was time to take action, but the thought sent waves of dread through me. What if I failed her? What if my efforts fell flat against a system so deeply rooted? And while she dove back into her studies, I couldn't shake the urgency to prepare for the battle ahead. The time had come to face not just the board, but the raging doubts within me. The fight for her future wouldn't be easy, but I knew I finally had something worth fighting for. The moment swelled, anticipation mixing with fear. Tomorrow I would step into the fray, but just then, my phone buzzed with an unexpected notification. From Emily's school. A new tension gripped me as I opened the message. What I found would change everything. The dim glow of the phone screen illuminated my furrowed brow as I opened the message, confusion slowly morphing into disbelief. "Emily has been selected to showcase her project at the state science fair," it read, the message barely registering as panic clawed at my insides. My daughter had spoken so little about her project, wrapped in her own world, and now she was being thrust into the spotlight without me fully understanding her work. What did she need to show? What kind of project could warrant this acknowledgement? The questions spiraled, whispering that I hadn't been present enough, hadn't shown enough interest. I darted into her room, heart hammering against my ribcage as I lurked in the shadows of her quiet sanctuary. I hesitated, aware of the gravity of what her success might mean, what it could reveal about our little world. "Emily?" I knocked gently, forcing my voice to be steady despite the quaking within. The quiet rustle of sheets stirred before I heard her faint response. "Yeah, Dad?" Can we talk about your project? The sleepy confusion reacted with caution, but she didn't hesitate to invite me in. As I settled into the clutter of her room, the weight of her promise pressed down on me. There was a deep potential simmering under the surface of her academic pursuits, and it terrified me. Yeah, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, she said, glancing nervously, avoiding eye contact. Not that big of a deal? I leaned in, challenging her nonchalance. You're going to the state fair. This is huge. Her shoulders slumped, and I could see the daunting weight of expectation resting there. I guess. But I'm worried. About what? The urgency in my voice surprised me. I needed her to feel as passionate about this as I had begun to feel about fighting for her education. It's just a lot of pressure. And what if I don't win? What if I fail? A sharp pang of recognition pierced through me. I had been wrestling with the very same fears, though from a different angle. Listen, we can't worry about success and failure right now. What matters is that you've done the work. You've created something meaningful. We just need to show everyone what you can do. She finally met my gaze, a flicker of something stirring in her brown eyes. But what if they judge me? What if they think I'm just the mechanic's daughter? The mention of being defined by my profession ignited something deep within me. I realized how often I clung to that identity, using it as a protective barrier. Emily, my job doesn't define who you are. You're so much more. You are passionate, innovative. Look at the world you created with your project, I urged, feeling my words solidifying into a foundation we could build on. The corners of her mouth turned up slightly. Do you really think so? I know so. I thought back to the fight we were gearing for against the school system. And if I can face the board, you can definitely face that science fair. We'll be a team. She grinned, the shadows of doubt beginning to lift. Okay, maybe you're right. I just need to get my presentation ready. With that, I felt the shift in us, a palpable bond strengthening as we embraced our challenges. It would be more than just supporters in this journey. We were allies. Yet as we laid out her project details, my phone buzzed again. A notification that sent dread rolling back into the pit of my stomach. It was a meeting request from the school board. The date was set, the time looming. My plans to confront them had now become real. Emily was on the verge of finding her own voice, and I would need to do the same when the time came, standing up not just for her, but for all students facing bias. I had a new battle ahead, one that I could not shy away from. As we pored over her project, the stark reality loomed closer, a reminder that the coming days would forge more than just our futures. They would demand everything from us. Instinctively, I felt a resolve swell within me. This was the beginning of a new chapter for both of us. But the school board awaited, and I could sense the collision of opposing forces on the horizon. Would I rise to the challenge or falter under the weight of expectation? The next morning, the weight of expectations settled heavily on me. I had promised Emily that we would tackle her project together. Yet I found myself preoccupied with the imminent confrontation with the school board. Each moment spent immersed in Emily's world drew me away from the unsettling reality of my own responsibility. As I brewed coffee, the steam swirling in the air felt like the turbulence in my mind. I needed clarity, a solid plan of action that would empower both myself and Emily. Looking out the window, I could see the early morning light filtering through the leaves, a gentle reminder that change was not only possible, but necessary. I needed to channel that energy into our preparations, and my own resolve. Dad? Emily's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back into our shared reality. I turned to see her holding her project materials, a mix of excitement and anxiety coloring her demeanor. Are you ready to go over my presentation? Absolutely, I confirmed, forcing a smile even as my insides twisted. I motioned her to the kitchen table, where we could get to work. The table was cluttered with papers, charts, and markers, all reflecting the hours she had poured into her project. It was impressive and demonstrated a depth of understanding that I hadn't initially recognized. As we reviewed her notes, Emily spoke about her research, her eyes lighting up with passion. The more she talked, the more I saw her confidence emerging like a phoenix from the ashes of doubt. And then I tested my hypothesis, and it actually worked, she exclaimed, her face transforming with enthusiasm. That's amazing, Em. You need to highlight that in your presentation. My voice carried a note of encouragement. Her brilliance was undeniable. The knots in my stomach began to untangle, replaced by a fierce pride in her capabilities. Yet, as she prepared a mock presentation, I couldn't help but reflect on my own challenges. The looming school board meeting hovered like a dark cloud. I had promised to stand by her side while I also grappled with my own voice. How could I lead her if I didn't have the clarity and courage to stand for my beliefs? I was reminding Emily to embrace her authentic self, yet I felt torn between the facade I'd constructed and what I aspired to be. An advocate for our family, and an ally for all families facing prejudice. Dad, you okay? Emily's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. I realized I'd been silent for too long, lost in my deliberations. Yeah, just thinking about the meeting today. The admission dangled in the air, vulnerable and revealing. My project is a big deal for me, but I'm nervous about presenting it. You're not scared too, are you? She bit her lip, a fleeting moment of hesitation whiskering past her bravado. Honestly? Yes, I replied, instinctively rubbing the back of my neck, a nervous habit that had resurfaced. But fear is part of growth. You're showing me that. You're stepping out of your comfort zone, and I need to do the same. Her concerned gaze softened. We can be scared together. In that moment, I understood that the movement toward our respective growth didn't have to be linear or perfect, but it demanded vulnerability and authenticity. We were tackling our fears side by side, teachers and learners in our own right. The hours dwindled as we rehearsed her presentation again and again. With each retelling, I felt the self-doubt slowly draping off my shoulders. At last, she felt ready, a confident young scientist prepared to share her discoveries. But as we closed the binder and I glanced at the clock, anxiety wrapped around my chest once more. The school board meeting was upon me. Emily, on your presentation day, just trust yourself, I urged, hoping my words would resonate with the same conviction I was trying to summon for myself. I will, Dad. Just like you. She smiled, igniting a flicker of newfound determination inside me that sharpened my resolve. I made my way to the meeting after giving her a reassuring hug, but the uncertainty of how I would articulate my thoughts flooded my mind. The tension was palpable. It would not be merely my battle today. The stakes felt monumental, and my heart raced like a drum in my chest. As I approached the school, the threshold loomed ahead, a portal into conflict and confrontation. But little did I know, lurking within the walls of that school would be a truth that could change everything. Would my voice finally break free? Or would I find myself silenced once again? The hallways of the school echoed with the voices of students and staff, but all I could hear was the tempest inside my mind. Each step I took toward the meeting room felt like wading through thick fog, uncertainty clouding my ability to focus on anything but the shadows of anxiety. What if my voice faltered? What if the words I planned to say vanished at the moment they were needed most? Upon entering the meeting room, I was greeted by the school board members seated behind a long table, each face a mask of authority, ready to scrutinize my every word. The mood was tense, and their expressions held a blend of curiosity and skepticism. I took a seat, trying to compose myself. I couldn't show any signs of hesitation. I had to channel the strength I had witnessed in Emily just this morning. One of the board members, Mrs. Thompson, spoke first. "We're eager to hear your thoughts regarding the concerns raised by some parents about our curriculum. Please, share your perspective." The moment hung in the air like a pendulum, and I realized this was it. I had to confront my fear, not just for my sake, but as an example for Emily. I took a deep breath, shifting my weight in my chair, and squared my shoulders. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "I understand that concerns about the curriculum can stem from differing values. However, it's crucial that we foster an environment of acceptance and understanding. Our students thrive when they feel their identities and experiences are respected." As I spoke, a fire ignited within me, fueled by Emily's unwavering spirit. Every word became a small victory, a silent rebellion against the doubts that had kept me quiet for far too long. The board members listened, their expressions unreadable. But I forged ahead, propelled by an urgency that felt both foreign and exhilarating. I began to think about how brave Emily was to present her project. Was my courage really to confront an assembly and authority less daunting than her standing in front of her peers? I recalled her looking at me with that mix of excitement and fear. The reflection of her determination struck a chord deep within me. I believe that when we censor education based on fear or misunderstanding, we rob students like my daughter of the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to embrace the complexities of our world. I said, my heart pounding with conviction. The board sat still, absorbing my words, and for a split second, silence enveloped the room. I felt a rush of adrenaline, realizing I had crossed an important threshold, not merely for myself, but for the families I represented. Yet, just as clarity washed over me, I felt a sharp apprehension resurfacing. Would their objections still hold, despite my earnest plea? Would my passion truly sway them or be dismissed? The looming uncertainty washed over me once again as I finished my thoughts. I urge you to consider the importance of diversity in our curriculum, empowering our students, not just to learn facts, but to engage with different perspectives. I concluded, my voice wavering slightly but still resolute. Before I could gauge their responses, the door swung open, cutting into the moment, as Emily poked her head in, her eyes bright with excitement. My heart raced. She had slipped away from preparing for her own presentation. "Dad, she began, in awe or urgency, and immediately the board's attention surged toward her. In that instant, I understood that the influence I desired to wield extended beyond this meeting. It reached right into the heart of my daughter, inspiring her to embrace who she is. Raw, authentic, and unapologetic. The thrill of vulnerability burned deep in me, and I knew my journey was only just beginning. But what had drawn Emily here? I could see her mentally preparing to step into her own light, but amidst my victory, anxiety returned. Would her presence derail me or bolster our cause? The room was alive with tension again. Yet I couldn't help but wonder. What had she discovered that had compelled her to join me in this moment? Emily stepped inside, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of determination and urgency that both reassured and unsettled me. I wanted to protect this moment for her, yet her presence shifted the focus of the room, the tension thickening as all eyes fixed upon her. "Emily, is everything all right?" I managed to ask, the words heavy with concern. "I just wanted to come support you," she said, crossing the room with a confidence I didn't feel myself. "This is important." Even in the midst of my anxiety, her willingness to stand beside me ignited a sense of purpose. I realized this wasn't solely about my fight for our curriculum. It was also about her navigating her own challenges. If I faltered now, I could risk dimming that bright light within her. Mrs. Thompson cleared her throat, her gaze darting back to the board. "Emily, we weren't expecting you. Perhaps you should return to your presentation." "No," my daughter replied firmly, surprising everyone, especially me. "I need to be here. My dad is right. We can't let fear dictate our knowledge." Her words struck a chord with a few board members, and I could see a ripple of surprise coursing through the room. Was this the moment my own courage transformed into something larger than myself? Empathy surged within me. I recognized that she wasn't just standing up for my beliefs. She was fighting for herself, too. For a brief moment, the board looked taken aback. I sensed an open door, a fracture in their skepticism. Emily continued. "In the history classes we have now, we don't learn about the people whose stories are often hidden. If kids like me can't see ourselves in our education, how are we supposed to understand the world?" As she spoke, my heart swelled. Here was my daughter, articulating complex thoughts that reflected her understanding of identity and inclusivity. Not just the echo of my fears, but her own authentic voice emerging from a place of clarity. "Thank you, Emily," Mrs. Thompson said slowly, a hint of hesitation creeping into her tone. "But this meeting is supposed to be about Mr. Carter's position. I think it should be about all of us," Emily interjected, undeterred. "My dad has the courage to speak for me, and I want to do the same. We need to allow our curriculum to grow with us." I admired her bravery, even as dread crawled through my thoughts. Where would this lead? Was I equipped to handle the pressure of both the board's decision and my daughter's expectations? The silence felt palpable, the kind where whispers of apprehension and awe coiled around us like fog. Did they see the value in what Emily was saying? Or were they ready to double down against a threat that rocked the very foundation of their authority? I found my voice, steadied by Emily's initiative. "I second her sentiment. Not only must we create an environment that champions diverse perspectives, but we also need to reflect the authentic experiences of our students. It's as essential as reading and math." Her head turned slightly, one of the board members leaning forward, contemplating the shift in dynamics. Their expressions began to morph, doubt shifting into curiosity. Still, beneath my conviction lay shards of insecurity. Who was I to think I could influence these seasoned professionals? Yet the urgency felt overpowering. I couldn't retreat now. Retreat would mean surrendering to the very fears I had fought against. But the lingering fear of the response from the board gnawed at me. Would they yield to a young student's energetic plea? Or would they dismiss the synergy blooming in this charged moment as insignificant? As I sought strength in Emily's gaze, my mind raced through the possibilities. This wasn't just about a curriculum. It was about a future where our voices mattered, even in a world that often seemed disinterested. Yet amidst that realization emerged a new fear. What if we were wrong? What if we stepped too far, too fast, risking everything? Before I could voice my concerns, Mrs. Thompson leaned back in her chair, brows furrowed deeply in consideration, leaving me wondering what her next move would be. Would we awaken to an embrace of new ideas, or would resistance silence us? As the room held its breath, one question banged loudly in my mind. What was about to unfold now, as my daughter and I stood on the precipice of possibility? The silence hung thick, woven with tension and expectation. I could feel the weight of the board's scrutiny on my shoulders, poised to either push us forward or crush us under their cumulative authority. Mrs. Thompson's furrowed brow mirrored my inner conflict. Would she embrace the momentum we had created, or would she quash it with a flick of her wrist? Emily shifted slightly, her gaze unwavering. It struck me how fierce she had become, and I felt a rush of determination wash over me. Would I allow her bravery to buoy my own? We had embarked on this journey together, yet I was the one who had faltered in the past. How many missed opportunities would stretch out before us if I didn't seize this moment? Mrs. Thompson cleared her throat, disrupting the collective silence. While I commend the passion and eloquence displayed here, we must adhere to protocol. I believe we should take this proposal into consideration later. Perhaps we could set up a discussion next month. I could feel disappointment starting to creep in, but then Emily intervened once more. But why wait, Mrs. Thompson? This isn't just a passing conversation. Our experiences shouldn't be sidelined. Let's embrace the need for change now, not later. We need to hear those stories today. Her words were sharper than before, cutting through layers of apathy we had faced thus far. The board members exchanged glances, but I could feel the tide shifting. The conversation had morphed from formalities to a genuine engagement, a spark ignited by my daughter's plea. I struggled with the impulse to backtrack. But then a surprising realization settled over me. Perhaps what I feared most was the thought of standing completely in the light of Emily's resolve. If I allowed this moment to unfold, I too would have to confront my own weaknesses and embrace the fear of rejection head-on. As I steadied my breath, the breadth of my decision began to crystallize. Involvement in this debate demanded not only action, but authenticity. I had spent many years shaping a facade of confidence, but what if I could pivot from that and meet the truth of my vulnerability? If the board was willing to listen, now was the time for both of us to show our cards. "Emily," I spoke, my voice breaking as I steeled my determination. "You're absolutely right. We deserve to advocate for all voices at this table, starting from our children's narratives. This isn't just about exploring a new curriculum. It's a chance for us to redefine our educational values altogether. Values that are reflective of inclusivity. So I will not just advocate for this change. I will stand with you, Emily." Her expression brightened momentarily, as if she hadn't realized how much my support invigorated her. But the resolve on the board's faces remained ambiguous, even with the air thick with uncertainty and newfound courage coursing through the room. Mrs. Thompson looked contemplative, then finally said, "Mr. Carter, Miss Carter, I agree that this discussion warrants immediate attention. Perhaps we can open the floor for a dialogue right now. Let's explore what this curriculum could look like together." The unexpected invitation sent a ripple of surprise through the board. As conversations began to blossom, I felt both liberated and fearful. This was the moment I had needed to discover that change began with dialogue, that our voices mattered. Yet the nagging question lingered in my mind. Were we ready for what was ahead? Suddenly another voice piped up from the back, one I recognized instantly. "If we're going to talk about curriculum, we need to include not just the students, but also their families and communities." The voice belonged to a parent whose child had once struggled with the very same topics Emily had addressed. It ignited a wave of discussion, each additional perspective brushing away my uncertainties. However, as the meeting turned into a vibrant exchange, I sensed a resistance lurking beneath the surface. Would the board truly be open, or were they merely entertaining us before roping us back into their established norms? As the conversation intensified, I realized that a larger battle was brewing. This wasn't just about a curriculum anymore. It was about challenging a legacy of exclusion that had shadowed our educational systems. As I scanned the room, preparing myself for yet another rebuttal, a new clarity dawned. Actual change was often birthed in tumult, and yet a new fear prickled at the edges of my resolve. Did we have the strength and tenacity to press on through opposition when it came? I caught Emily's eye again. In her steady gaze, I saw a reflection of my own burgeoning confidence, and I knew now we had to push further. Before I could wrestle with my thoughts, the room veered into uncharted territory. An adversary seated nearby spoke up, his stance shifting, revealing intentions that left me clenching my fists. What was about to unfold now, as the very foundation of our beliefs began to shake? The tension in the room coiled like a spring, ready to release. I could feel my heart rate escalate as the unfamiliar voice cut through the growing dialogue. A board member, clad in the armor of tradition, leaned forward, lips pursed. I believe some of these suggestions may be too radical for our community. We must focus on maintaining the standards already in place. His words landed like a wet blanket, suffocating the vibrant energy soaking through our discussions. The air grew heavy once more. I could sense the imminent struggle. This was not just a clash of ideas, but a direct attack on what Emily and I stood for. Would everyone else retreat to the margins where safety blunted courage? Mr. Jenkins, I began, grounding myself in the moment. I understand the desire for stability, but innovation often requires a leap. Our children deserve a learning environment that reflects their realities. We have to advocate for them, even if it means challenging what's always been done. My voice was steadier now, fueled by the urgency tangible in the room. Emily's eyes sparkled with admiration, and that spark stoked my internal flame further. I was poised to confront not just Mr. Jenkins' views, but the doubt that clung to my thoughts like shadows tailored to my insecurities. Every word I spoke anchored me deeper into this quest for authenticity. The board murmured, a mix of agreement and discontent flickering through their ranks. A glimmer of hope ignited within me, tempting me to believe that perhaps change wasn't as distant as I'd feared. But then a question loomed large. Would I remain a voice speaking truth to power, or slip back into complacency when it all fell apart? Change, by its very nature, addresses discomfort. If we prefer to ignore it, what message does that send our children? This was a personal revelation, one that struck deep. I was not merely battling traditions. I was wrestling with my own internalized belief that comfort should trump challenge. My own voice shifted from passive observer to active participant. Some board members leaned forward, intrigued. Others sat back, arms crossed defensively. The spectrum of reaction mirrored the internal struggles faced by many. You say that acknowledging diverse narratives is a radical idea, yet I see it as the only way to strengthen our community. I pressed on, emboldened. Inclusion doesn't weaken our standards. It enhances them. It brings richness to our curriculum, a tapestry woven with stories of all students. Mr. Jenkins huffed, but I noticed the slight furrow in his brow loosen as I spoke. Perhaps a part of him recognized the growing appetite for change. It was akin to watching an old tree learn to bend, rather than break in the wind, adapting in real time with the pressures around it. As voices continued to fill the room, a weight shifted within me. My fear of rejection began to feel not like an anchor, but a beacon guiding me toward my true self. I was beginning to understand that my own beliefs needed to be challenged just as fiercely, and this very moment, this collective dialogue, invited that evolution. Then, Emily turned to me, her face alight with determination and something deeper. It was a challenge. Let's not just focus on the curriculum. Let's also talk about how this affects our families and the stories they carry. Her words struck a familiar chord. Here was my daughter, echoing my thoughts boldly, urging us back to the core of our dialogue. It was no longer me standing alone. It was us against conformity, together forging a new path. Suddenly an unexpected opponent leaned in, defiance lacing his tone. But what of the parents who disagree? Are we to dismiss their concerns in favor of an unfounded movement? Just as I felt my pulse quicken, awareness washed over me. This was another crucible for my growth. I could engage, counter, or recoil. The choice lay in my hands, and now I had a wider network of support to draw from. Taking a breath, I responded, steadying my resolve. We can acknowledge differing opinions while also pushing for a dialogue that embraces narratives traditionally silenced. It's not about dismissing anyone but opening pathways for all voices, including those who feel unheard. As the room buzzed with exchanged thoughts and the debate intensified, I felt an electric current of possibility weave through our gathering. The momentum was building, and I sensed that, ultimately, our fears could offer us strength. And then one more voice pierced the conversation. A familiar face from our neighborhood. Steely, yet kind. One I hadn't expected to see present. Their presence brought forth memories and emotions I had long buried. "Isn't it ironic," they began slowly, "that we're having this very passionate discussion right here, when just last week, our children carried the weight of these issues alone?" The intensity around me fizzled, leaving uncertainty in its wake. I had not expected this turn, and the ground shifted beneath us. If my neighbor dared open such wounds, what other buried truths might come to light? As I considered the upcoming crossroads, I realized this moment was pivotal. Would my willingness to embrace the discomfort of this dialogue open up new avenues for all of us? The stakes were rising, and the shadows of doubt lurked around every corner. I had my daughter beside me, but an uncertain question bubbled to the surface. Could we really turn around a legacy entrenched in silence without losing ourselves in the process? In the sudden hush that enveloped the room, an unsettling mixture of anxiety and anticipation rippled through me. The familiar face from my neighborhood seemed to shift the landscape of our conversation, cracking it open to reveal unspoken truths. How could I navigate this new terrain without falling apart? With the weight of our children's experiences hanging palpably in the air, I took a mental inventory of my resources, my resolve, my experiences, and most importantly, my daughter's radiant spirit. Are we to stay silent while our children struggle? I felt a tremor in my voice, an urgent resonance that beckoned others to engage. The room stirred again, as if each individual was weighing their allegiance, tradition, or transformation. Emily's hand found mine beneath the table, a silent gesture of solidarity that encouraged me to push forward. Our children shouldn't have to carry these conversations alone, not when we can partner with them to reshape our narrative. I reiterated, feeling the electricity of our collective potential. Then came Mr. Jenkins again, his expression impassive but defensively charged. "But whose stories are we prioritizing? Is it really the community when you cave to the loudest voices?" His words struck me, threatening to sever the vulnerable thread of connection I had woven. I recognized the crux of his argument. It wasn't just about challenging norms. It was about defining who was worthy of a voice. I felt each heartbeat echo this question. Could I, a fallible parent, be that advocate? "Change doesn't come without discomfort, Mr. Jenkins," I challenged, my gaze steady. "Yet how many of your community members have felt sidelined? A powerful story is not solely about volume. It's about the depth and nuance it brings." The grace of standing tall in a room filled with uncertainties was intoxicating, even if it also felt precarious. I had liberated my own hesitations, turning them into fuel while transforming the potential for confrontation into an opportunity for dialogue. Then, as if on cue, Emily resumed her role with newfound vigor. "Or what about those parents who have also felt unheard? Perhaps we can take these conversations into dinner tables across our community. Let them be part of it. We can socket their input into decision-making, instead of forcing them into an arena where their voices echo in isolation." At her command, I felt an invisible tether strengthen between us. A web of purpose and ambition. This wasn't just our fight. It was a shared endeavor that could birth new paradigms of understanding. Yet, lurking in the corners of my consciousness, doubt flickered. What if the pushback only intensified? Would I waver, or was I steadfast enough to hold this ground? Each moment unfolded like a precognitive dream, and answering Mr. Jenkins's challenge bore an uncomfortable reflection of my own capacity to steer the dialogue. With a steady exhale, I decided to explore this tension further. "Mr. Jenkins, imagine our discussions turning into family workshops, where stories of hardship illuminate policies. Wouldn't that draw us closer? We're not asking for eradication of past practices, but evolution, And I believe that's what ultimately connects us to a brighter future. He sat back slightly, brow furrowed but undeniably intrigued. The curtains of his emotional response creaked open, revealing cracks in a facade so meticulously maintained. The chance to engage him in this narrative was brewing, offering the potential for radical change. Just as new possibilities began to sprout, another board member chimed in. This time, the tension somber but resolute. And what if we fail? If we muddy our traditions, what will that say about us? Isn't it dangerous to invite confusion? The weight of fear hung in the air, ringing eerily similar to my own internal echoes. Would I collapse under the fear of confusion? Or could I rise in the face of uncertainty? I glanced at Emily, her determination illuminating a path through the darkness that awaited outside our ambitions. Isn't confusion simply the precursor to clarity? I countered, propelled by an impulse to confront not just the board's reluctance, but my own fears of inadequacy. Our children deserve the chance to thrive, not just survive. It's in the complexities that true understanding emerges. The murmurs intensified, the room boiling with dissent and intrigue alike. All the perspectives flying around created a mental storm, each idea crashing into another in a cacophony that threatened to engulf me. And then I saw it. The flicker of recognition, both in the board members' eyes and within my own heart. I was not navigating this precarious path alone. Emily mirrored this fight, crafting a bridge of strength where fear might have reigned. Just then, amidst the clamor, one reflection broke through. What if I could embrace the very discomfort we all feared? Perhaps, by leaning into this tension, we would unearth a deeper narrative, one that would encapsulate the shared experiences shaping our community. As I considered this truth, the conversation slowed, and I grasped the profound shift in dynamics. I could become the compass, guiding this dialogue toward the understanding that could reshape our future. Feeling empowered, yet clinging to my uncertainty, I took a step closer to the edge of this endeavor. Before I could even fathom my next move, another voice surged from the back of the room, igniting all the latent conflicts waiting to erupt. Are we ready to face the reckoning when our voices finally clash? The question stirred something deep within me. Could I truly confront the reckoning? As silence fell once more, I realized we were on the cusp of a pivotal moment, one that had the potential to reverberate far beyond this room. What awaited us on the other side felt palpable and terrifying. With this impending confrontation looming, I understood that my personal evolution was unfolding right before my eyes. The moment appeared to fatefully pivot towards decision, a decision that could carve a new path for my daughter and the broader vision I'd begun to lay. Where would this riveting journey take us next? With the school board room enveloped in a stillness pregnant with anticipation, I grasped the enormity of our creation. A burgeoning dialogue ignited by Emily, and fueled by our shared commitment to confront the uncomfortable truths that had lingered for far too long. This was not merely an exercise in debate. It was an awakening that demanded we step beyond silence and reclaim the narrative of our experiences. I took a step forward, heart pounding but emboldened by the palpable energy emanating from Emily's courageous stance. The shadows of doubt that had once tangled around my resolve began to fade. We were traversing a precipice, not only of institutional change, but one of personal transformation. We are ready to face that reckoning, I stated emphatically, my voice ringing out with newfound conviction. But that requires all of us, committed to not only listening but actively participating in reshaping our narrative. We no longer want our voices to echo alone. We want them harmonized into a collective symphony of understanding. The board listened intently, their initial skepticism softening into contemplation. There, in the heart of that meeting room, I sensed the beginnings of a shift, a recognition that perhaps we were stronger together. I could see the rigidity in their bodies beginning to dissolve. Emily's gaze remained steady, her confidence invigorating me as she continued. If we embrace diverse narratives, We don't dilute our standards. We elevate them. By welcoming a broader range of experiences into our curriculum, we prepare ourselves to meet a future where all children feel seen and valued. Feeling fortified by my partnership with Emily, I pressed on. And this will not only transform our schools, but our community. Imagine our children engaging with the world through lenses that are rich and varied. They will learn compassion, empathy, and critical thinking, skills necessary for the challenges they will face. A quiet murmur of agreement fluttered through the board. Several members shared glances, nodding as if cobwebs of complacency were being brushed aside. A breakthrough was imminent, but fear still gripped my heart. What if it unraveled in our hands? Yet, as I observed Emily, I knew this was about more than just the two of us. It was about paving a path for all students burdened by the weight of exclusion. I articulated each point with deliberation, but it was her fierce commitment that propelled me. As the meeting unfolded, established defenses gradually crumbled, incrementally replaced by the desire to consider a broader understanding of inclusivity. Change is an evolution, not a revolution, I asserted, gathering momentum. We can cultivate that evolution right now. We owe it to our children to give them the tools and the narratives that reflect their realities. Just then I spotted a shift across the room. A subtle movement of acknowledgement. A board member who had previously appeared stoic leaned forward, signaling a willingness to engage. What if we began with a pilot program? She proposed tentatively. We could establish a committee to review and integrate new narratives into our curriculum, starting with empathy education. Hope flickered in my chest, its warmth dispelling the vestiges of fear. The room swelled with murmurs of agreement, a palpable shift in energy that affirmed the resilience of our shared efforts. Emily's smile radiated beside me. It was the embodiment of everything we had fought for. My heart raced. The recognition of potential blossomed within me. "Thank you," I said earnestly, my voice trembling slightly from emotion. Your willingness to consider these ideas is an invitation for transformation. Not only for our classrooms, but for our community as a whole. With this program, we can lay the foundation, and together, we can ensure that every voice is heard. And just like that, the board began to commit to a transformative shift. A partnership was being established to redefine education in ways I had once feared were implausible. I witnessed an alignment of purpose that had forged stronger than individual aspirations. This was communal understanding shaping our futures. As the meeting drew to a close, I realized the true reason for my presence in this space. Far beyond presenting my perspective, this experience had catalyzed my evolution as a father and an advocate. I had dissected the fears that had constrained me, replaced them with an unyielding belief in the possibility of growth, both for Emily and myself. A lingering weight dissipated, leaving a lightness I had not felt in years. Before we exited the room, I looked at Emily, her eyes shimmering with pride and potential. "I think we did it, Dad," she whispered, disbelief lacing her voice. "Yes, we did," I affirmed, my spirit merging with hers in a poignant embrace of triumph. Together, we're just getting started. We've built something beautiful today. Walking out into the sunlight, I realized this journey didn't just steer one course. It would create a ripple effect that extended far beyond school walls. With every challenge confronted, I transformed, now equipped not only to champion my daughter, but to bear the torch for all students emerging from the shadows. And as we stepped together into a future imbued with strength and voices, I felt an exhilaration building within me, one that could conquer any fear and demonstrate with unwavering clarity that this was exactly where we were meant to be. Now, as I reflect on this journey of growth, I invite you to partake in this transformative experience. If you believe in the power of personal narratives and community, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like. It truly matters. I want to hear from you, so comment below your thoughts and reactions. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion. Your engagement not only fuels our mission but also amplifies the voices that need to be heard. Join us in the movement for change.